Hello, everybody, and welcome into Talking Trees Live. And guess what? I got some new swag. We've got Talking Trees Live hats now. Don't worry, I'm not going to wear it the whole time. Oh, benefit of short hair. You can just take a hat off and it looks like it always did. But we're not here to talk about hats or hair. We are here to talk about palms. And I am so excited to welcome in our guest all the way from the other side of the country from me, Ian Campbell. Hey, Ian.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. Aren't you good with time zones? Good morning to you.
Thank you.
So you're in San Diego, right?
We are. We're blessed to be here. It's a beautiful 76 degrees and sunny and clear outside.
That is what's called rubbing it in. It's been in the 90s and 100s here on the East Coast. It has been so hot. San Diego weather is the best. If anyone is out there, actually, you guys out there, tell us where you are tuning in from. And today, if you couldn't have guessed, we are going to be talking about palm trees, which, Ian, you said you grew up in California. So you grew up around palm trees. I confessedly, is that a word? I confess that I have not grown up around palms. And when I go to my beaches, they're East Coast beaches, Northeast Coast. So I have no experience with palms. So I want to know, drop a palm tree in the chat, the palm tree emoji, if you can look out your window and see palm trees, because I cannot even imagine what that's like. So we're going to get all into it. We've got our first person tuning in from Cleveland, which there are likely no palm trees. Virginia, so we're getting on the border. I don't know. We're going to learn all about palms from you today, so I'm really excited. You seem thrilled too.
Ecstatic to be here.
So I know. But I want to learn a little bit about you first, because before we jump into palm tree care, I want to learn about what got you involved in arboriculture. Why did you, this California boy, want to learn about trees?
So myself personally, I was 18 years old and we had a outbreak of a specific insect out here that killed our pine trees. So there was an influx of work for young, able-bodied workers, and for a summer job, I thought, hey, this would be fun to do. In a very short period of time, I realized there was a lot more than pulling branches and caring for trees. So I've made that a career path, and almost 20 years later, it's what I've ever known.
Wow, amazing. And I know that Davey's still hiring from, a couple years ago when you were 18 until today. Davey's hiring. So we'll drop a link to the careers if it's something that you're interested in. Oh my gosh, we have two people from Florida. Jennifer's tuning in from Palm City, Florida. Did you know that place existed? You guys have Palm Springs. You guys have Palm Springs, right?
Yeah, Palm Springs is about an hour and a half from us here in San Diego.
Okay. So
I lived in Florida for a little bit as well, down in Miami. So
nice.
Quite a few palm trees down there.
So speaking of palm trees on the East versus West Coast, I, thank you, Google, found out that there are over 2,600 species of palm trees. So when we talk about this family, this group of palm trees, is it like deciduous and evergreen? Can some of the general care be applied to all of them, or are they very specific in each of their species?
Yes. No, so palm trees themselves, they're different from our traditional trees. They're monocots, whereas our traditional trees that drop leaves and are evergreens and deciduous trees, those are dicots. So palms are more like a grass, if you think about it from the scientific standpoint, than a true tree, meaning that, for instance, decay. Trees have walls and compartmentalization with decay. So when damage occurs to the trunk of a typical tree, the tree can close off and localize that decay to a small area. A palm doesn't have those walls of compartmentalization because it's a grass. So the damage will continue to move through the palm throughout the course of its life.
I had to close my mouth while you were talking. I felt my mouth getting wider and wider because I had no idea to think about a palm more like a grass. Are we thinking about it like the trunk is one stalk, or are we thinking about it like grass is, where the fronds are all, it's a family of grasses?
We're going to think of it as a family, and I don't want to get that term grass too closely associated, because our monocots in themselves are unique. So what I will say is palms all need some basic level of care when they're in our urban environment. And, you know, I think we walk around, we look at palms and we think, hey, that's great. But as an owner of property with palm trees, what kind of care does that require? So one of the biggest things with palms and keeping palms healthy and happy is going to be fertilization on a regular basis.
Interesting. All right. Well, I wasn't ready to jump right into it, but since we
Sorry.
did, I want to go a little bit higher level, but since you're on fertilization and that seems to you to be like the number one care tip for those of you, I know we've got a couple Floridians actually tuning in. So fertilizer, we need to fertilize our palm trees. Is this something homeowners can do, or is the care and fertilizer for palm trees more better left to the pros?
Well, I mean, it depends on the level of care you're trying to provide. So anything is going to be better than nothing. What we recommend is a soil sample prior to fertilization.
Yep.
And the reason being is we want to see what's in the soil, what's lacking, where the micronutrient level's at, but more importantly, where's our pH level at? You can have the best nutrients in the world in your soil, but if your pH isn't conducive for uptake, it's not going to be helpful to the plant.
Okay. So you're looking for acidic soil?
Typically, you want a little more acidic soil. Yeah. So the 6.2 range, 6.5. It's just depending on your area. It's going to vary tremendously based on the soils you have. And it's hard to say without a soil sample. Even in San Diego, we have a lot of, microclimates here. And the soil from 1 yard to another 10 miles away is going to be entirely different profiles for us.
We talk about soil a lot on these chats. It seems to be no matter which topic we are talking about, it all goes back to the soil. And so I think it's really important, and how ironic that that's where you wanted to start, is in the soil. So like other, all the other trees in the country, palms are similar, is what their health above ground is dependent on what's underground.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, there's some things you want to be careful with your palm trees, mowers, for example, going around in those grass areas, keep the grass away from your palm trees, because again, they're that monocot species. Any decay, any damage that occurs to the trunk of that tree from any of that mechanical equipment used to maintain the area surrounding that, they're going to be apparent and evident for the rest of the life of that tree.
So do you mulch around palm trees then?
Mulch is our best friend. Mulch is underutilized. We don't want to mulch the trunk of the tree. But anything that can add organic material back into our barren urban soils and help guard some of that moisture, especially, we're in a drought prone area. So yeah, anything we can put down to help retain some moisture. With that, you want to be careful with over moisture. So we do see some problems sometimes with lawns surrounding palm trees, and too much water requirements for the lawn, not necessarily being the right amount for the palm tree. So it's all balance. And again, every property is going to be unique and different. So really, finding a good arborist in your area that can come out, give you that free annual inspection. They're going to look, not only at biotic and abiotic disorders, nutrient needs, they're also going to look at some of those cultural things of where's the water draining on the property? Is this creating a problem that's apparent now in the foliage? It's really your best bet.
I love it. Yes, hiring the arborist is your best bet. All right, let's take it a little bit higher level now and start with my first question, which is, why can't I have a palm tree in my backyard here in Pennsylvania?
Palm trees don't like cold weather. Some palm trees can tolerate a very short cold snap, 18 degrees for a day or two. But once you start getting into those long winter times, you can't. You'll find them in some atriums, some indoor spots. Just they take a lot of extra care. You can have whatever you want. It just depends how much do you want to spend to have that. And up there, it's just not cost effective.
Okay, so then are we looking at zone? I guess we don't want to talk too specific on zone, because I'm sure that all the species have some varying zones, but like 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's.
I wouldn't have those exact figures. Palm trees are found. So we can use Southern California, for example, and getting up into Northern California, we still find some of our Southern California palm trees up in the north.
Wow.
They're not as abundant. They don't do as well, but they can survive up there.
Are the palms native to native North America, or were they imported?
Again, another good question. We do have some native palms. However, I think the majority of the palms that we see are all imported.
Yeah.
Which, brings in another good point with tree planting and palm tree planting and knowing where your palm trees are coming from. Out here, we have a bug that is a killer of the large canary date palms, which are the big iconic palm trees that everybody knows or thinks of when they think of Hollywood in Southern California.
Is this
Uh,
one?
the canary date palm.
Can you see the picture?
Yeah, that looks like a type of fan palm.
Oh, bummer.
Very abundant palm tree out here. Uh, but with the sourcing, if you do have specific insects or diseases that are prevalent to specific palm species, you want to be sure that your source of new plant material is free of any kind of potential of having any infection or infestation.
So then how we source from a local garden center, we get the right tree from the right place, and then tell me about the right planting spot. So I would assume palms like full sun.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there are palms that will tolerate some shade, but just like most flowering trees, they want to be out in the sunlight, getting it in. That's how they do what they do and do it best. The biggest thing with palms is well drained soil. Again, we want to retain some of that natural moisture. We want those things, but when we're planting a palm, we want to make sure that that soil we're putting it in is really, really well drained.
I would imagine most of the places that palms grow well also have sandy soils. So that's going to be well draining soil. But would you suggest if Davey's out there planting or you have your arborist planting, are you amending that soil before planting, or do you do the same thing here? You want to just put it in where it's going to grow naturally with the soils around it?
Typically, because we're working in an urban environment, we're amending soil. We are not left with very good stuff out here in Southern California. Our topsoil has been ripped away. So for us, it's amended soil.
Yep.
Again, it's coming down to that soil sample. What's there? What does this plant want? And it's a real simple saying, but we want to take a $1 plant and we want to put it in a $5 hole.
That's my favorite saying. Yes. Can you explain what that means to people?
What that means is the soil preparation. It all comes down to soil preparation. The saying basically comes down to not enough time, effort, or money is spent on those soil amendments, getting that pH right, getting that organic material content right. And what we're doing is we're not creating a healthy soil. We're creating a healthy environment where these microorganisms are going to help these roots establish, expand, and grow, and the plant to do everything it should do naturally. So we're mimicking what nature would do naturally in our urban environment. And it's just, we have the opposite saying of what most people do is they take a $5 plant and they put it in a $1 hole. And then over the years, we see a plant that just never really does what we expect it to. And similar to other trees is the biggest palm isn't always the best palm. It's going to be that instant gratification, but just like with bigger trees, it's more stress on an older palm tree to be moved. And so there's risk of that plant not necessarily surviving a transplant or a move. So younger trees will acclimate to a new spot quicker. They will do well, and in a short period of time, they'll actually outgrow a larger tree.
That is the same. We were talking about fruit trees here on this chat last week, and that's what the arborist Jason Gaskell said was bigger is not always better. It is a misnomer. It's going to spend more time getting acclimated. And I was going to ask you about palm tree roots since we're talking about roots, because I wanted to know what they look like. So I grabbed this picture. I would assume this has been cut and dug up. So the roots will go out like another tree. They'll spread on the top surface of the soil, or do palm tree roots go really deep?
Yeah, I mean, so the deep tree roots are kind of a fallacy. And again, in drought-prone areas, it doesn't make a lot of sense for trees to expend all this energy sending these deep roots down to areas that don't have groundwater sources. So 85% of our tree roots are found in the top 6 to 8 inches of soil. Palm trees are no different from that. They are a very fibrous root mass. And you want to be careful about where you place a small palm tree as well, because as you can see from that root mass, that tree, 15, 20 years ago wouldn't have been an issue next to a sidewalk or a building. But as that root mass develops, and even though it is very fibrous, it can still do damage.
Okay, got it. So then how far, I mean, it depends on the variety, but you should look at your plant tag and know how far to place it from your house or the sidewalk, right, when planting?
Here's the best thing, and something we never get is call the arborist before you place the plants, because the landscape architects, the landscapers, they're fantastic, and they're going to give you something that looks beautiful right then and there. what we're going to do is we're going to look at what's this going to become in 3 to 5 years. And at the end of the day, if we can move something 3 feet over and save a couple thousands of dollars or headaches or potential loss of an entire plant down the road, it makes a lot of sense. So it's just really having that communication. Just it's usually free. Just make a call.
That is a great tip. And would you rather, Ian said it, moving that tree, transplanting the tree is not going to be great on the tree. So plant it in the right place to begin with. What about,
And it's not going to be cheap either.
No, not cheap. So you're not going to want to do it. So plant it right. So what about planting multiples? I often see palms, you see the classic alongside a street, planted in a straight row. When planting them together, is that we should consider distance apart as well for full growth?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You want to so with palm trees, you're going to have a pretty limited canopy spread. But again, it depends on the palm. If you got a canary date palm, they've got crown spreads upwards of 40, 50 plus feet. You can put that next to a queen palm that only has a 15 or 20-foot crown spread. So, yeah, you want to be cognizant. You want the palm to be able to fully open. You don't want fronds rubbing up against each other, rubbing up against the trunks of other palms. Again, that can always create damage.
So obviously the first thing people should do is have an arborist come out regularly. But I think one of the most common questions that Davey gets is, why are my palm leaves turning yellow or brown? It's just, they want to call you when there's a problem. Regular maintenance is best, but I think this is probably one of the biggest troubleshooting. Do you get called out a lot for this too? Like my palm?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there are some diseases that can cause some premature yellowing. And that's going to be really specific to the area that you're in and the palms that you have. Cold weather, sudden cold snap can create some yellowing of fronds occasionally. But most typically, the reason that your fronds are yellowing, it's self-induced. The trees are lacking nutrients. And so what the palm is doing is when it does not have the nutrient content in the soil, it starts taking the nutrients out of the lower fronds and feeds it to that central new frond that's coming out to ensure it's got everything that it needs. Now, what most homeowners do is the instinctual, well, I'll cut the yellow fronds off before they brown up and fall off. Well, now we're just exacerbating nutrient deficiency because a plant that's already trying to take nutrients from other parts of itself to feed itself, we're now taking those parts away too. So the most common cause for premature yellowing of fronds is lack of nutrients and then over pruning. And when I say over pruning of palms, it's probably one of the biggest things that we see is palms are over pruned.
Wow. So then why would someone, besides yellowing fronds, why would someone be, for sightliness or unsightliness, should we be pruning our own palms, or are they just going to be doing this naturally for us?
There are a few palms that will self shed naturally. Again, we live in an urban environment, so for us, there's a couple of reasons why we take the dead fronds off specific palms, particularly. But rodent habitat is a big one. We don't want to leave habitat for rodents in our backyards where they can start nesting, and it's a home for them. So that's a big reason. And another reason out here is we're in a high fire risk area, so the fire hazard that those dead fronds can present is really, really big.
Sorry, I was muted. Very interesting. Okay, so yellowing is a sign of a problem.
Yeah. Typically, yeah. I mean, palms. They will naturally brown out, right? Your lowest fronds are it's like its hair, its skin. It's gonna shed it. You're gonna lose some of those. But if you're seeing premature yellowing, it's likely something's going on with the palm.
So when you were talking about like some of the older fronds, these are the bottom here that we're seeing browning, where it's coming up new from the center and the top.
Correct. So the lower fronds where it is browning there, and typically you'll see a row or two a year, just depending on which palm it is and how much it's producing, brown out. That's part of the typical cycle of the palm. But you can see, yeah, if you're missing any kind of lack of central growth, there's something really going on with the palm. You want to definitely call the arborist, and it may already be too late.
Now, most of the palms that I'm picturing in my head are far too big for me to see the central growth. Is there another way to spot issues from the ground if the palm is too tall for me to see any of that?
You know, things that look out of place. An awkward kind of tip, a bend at a weird angle, just things that don't look natural to the eye. You know, for us as arborists, I think it's easy to say, well, yeah, we just look at this and hey, there it is. So it's just, you got to go with your gut. At the end of the day, you see your tree more than anyone else. You know that tree. And, you know, I've got clients that talk to their trees and have names for them. And they know when something's up with their tree. It just doesn't feel right. Things that we look for on the trunk of the tree with palms, cracks, any kind of cracking, you definitely, alarm bells are going off.
Okay.
Odd angles of the trunk. So if you see just a awkward angle starting to develop, that can be an issue. Penciling of the trunk, or where the trunk becomes very narrow, that's an issue. And then if you see any bleeding cankers on the trunk, that can be an indication of some decay. Again, just give your arborist a call. That's why they're insured, bonded, and licensed. And, you know,
Got it. I like
again,
it. Okay, so you mentioned fertilizer at the top, but for those who might have just joined us, you said those yellowing fronds might be a soil deficiency. So fertilizer, back to that fertilizer, might be the key thing that they need. So you guys are fertilizing palms at what frequency, and what kind of fertilizer are you using?
So for us, and when we talk about palm fertilizer, most of the time it's in the soil. However, we can't deliver all nutrients to palms via the soil. So depending on what it is, sometimes we do have to do trunk injections for the micronutrients into the trunks, and that's something that we do as well. But again, it depends on your soil profile. A minimum once a year. The palm trees can be fertilized, 2 or 3 times a year if the soil conditions are right and the palm will take it. But again, it comes down to those soil tests, how much of that nutrient content is leaching out. And then for us, we use our Davey Palm Pro fertilizer. It was developed by our Davey Research Institute. It is a fantastic slow release product that it has everything that our palms out here really need.
And you are putting that right into the soil, and roots, I would imagine, go out. So you're putting it around. Is there a drip line just like we have with some of our trees?
And not as well defined as with our deciduous and our evergreen trees, but we do still use a grid pattern, and we are still using soil probes. So, that decompaction of soil, letting that decompacted soil area exist for new roots to grow and thrive. I mean, that's the benefit of doing it with the high pressure injection fertilization.
Awesome. So fertilizer, you would say, is probably the most underutilized thing that people do to their palms, and the number one thing you can do. Well, you said soil test before, so you want to make sure you need that fertilizer, and your arborist can perform that soil test. And then to ensure your trees are healthy, get your arborist out there to fertilize them.
It's just like at the time of planting, right? I mean, it's that $5 hole for the $1 plant. It's continual focus on that soil, because if we have happy roots, we're going to have a visually happy plant.
Yes. All right. So first question we got from Courtney is that they're in hurricane season in Florida. And so luckily I pulled this lovely picture, which is kind of common for us to see on our news, our national news stations when these storms whip through these coastal regions. So is there anything Courtney wants to know that they should be doing to protect their palms before a storm?
Yeah, Courtney, I mean, the biggest thing is if your palms do have any dead fronds that are going to become dislodged in those kind of wind events that could become projectiles, I definitely want to get those off. I would advise against the quote unquote hurricane pruning or the rooster tailing of the palm trees, where they leave a frond or two so the wind can move by it better. There's no science that shows definitively that does any benefit for the plants whatsoever. And long term, it's a negative impact. So, prayers to you, stay safe. And just any dead fronds that are there, get them off so they don't come flying off.
Great tip. And if your tree is healthy and the roots are strong, then do palm trees get uprooted, right, in storms?
Yeah, a big problem with tree failures in storms isn't necessarily that a bunch of bad trees fall over. We see a lot of soil failure. And that is because our soils become inundated with too much water too quickly, and they can no longer support that massive biomass that it once supported because of that saturation. So you add that with some winds, and the best tree can come over in a storm. So, your best bet is to find a safe, clear area, because the best tree in the right storm condition, there's never a guarantee.
Got it. Great tip. And then what about post storm? So after the storm passes through, and let's say the tree has held up, they've pruned it. Are there any things we should be looking out for to say,
Yeah,
there's a problem in the future?
absolutely. And this is where you really want your arborist to come out. Yeah, they want to look for cracks in the trunk, any kind of defects that may have been created that didn't necessarily cause the tree to fail, but are going to be potential problems. They're going to look at soil cracking. Was there any shifting of that root mass? Is that now compromised? Depending on the size of the palm tree and what it is, there are some preservation methods that can be utilized to help reestablish that plant. And then at the end of the day, if it's a risk to persons or property, then it's not worth having anymore, and it could be recommended for removal. So, but yeah, your best bet is just after a storm event, always you get a professional out there, just have them look at things, make sure that everything's going to be okay.
Yep, that is important because trees add so much value. I mean, the beauty of a palm tree in a home in the coastal region or in California, and so they add so much value. Are they slow growing palm trees?
Not typically, and it depends on the variety. But typically, no. We do have some dwarf varieties, and some people want a palm tree that's never going to get more than 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
They exist. There's varieties out there, and then we have palm trees out here that are 90 plus. So they come in all shapes and sizes, just like us.
So it's important when you are shopping for one to pick the right one that you want.
Yes, yes, and cross reference. Just cross reference.
Now, this is, I know there's no such thing as a stupid question, but do palms have big seeds or things that we should be worried about dropping off, or is it just the fronds that could be falling?
So the seeds, and again, it depends, but seeds have some issues on themselves as far as sustaining. So that's a big reason why palm tree seeds are removed is they stain driveways. They also create trip hazards. So in a public area where you have liability, you don't want a bunch of fruit that people can slip on as they're walking by. The other thing is lots of volunteers can be produced from seed drop annually. So where you have 6 palm trees and you only want 6, if you don't take the seeds off and they're allowed to fall, you can have a palm forest very quickly. So again, in the urban environment, annually seeds are generally removed, dead fronds are removed, and that's just the basic maintenance in the urban environment. And again, with the whole rodent habitat, if there's fruit there, that's also food for them. So lots of reasons to remove it. Now, some people do leave it where they want birds and things like that to come in, and not all varieties necessarily need it, but for the most part here in Southern California, they're coming off.
Got it. So Tracy said that they've had to remove a queen palm due to damage to the trunk mid-region, which I wonder that could be construction, it could be anything, but construction, the trucks going by hit the trunk mid-region. What else do you think could have happened from it?
It could have been even something as bad as poor pruning years ago. So you can, when you're cutting off butt plates, if you get into that trunk, I mean, it's not going to be apparent right then and there, but 10, 15 years down the road, that damage doesn't go away.
Oh, wow.
So again, that's really why you want to use a professional, because it only takes a second for something that took 15, 20 plus years to get somewhere to be gone forever or changed.
Yeah. So she had to cut it down. So should she, I mean, obviously she should replace it. Do you have suggestions? Should she replace it with a queen palm, or does it not matter, just whatever suits that area?
I mean, it depends on what the palm tree needs to do. What does that tree need to do for that space? I mean, I think if you like the queen palm and it was just damage to the trunk, I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't have another one there. The other thing, though, too, to consider is, anything biological is going to die. And in palm trees or any tree, there's no exception to it. So if you have a property that you've been caring for some time, you want to make sure you have trees at different ages, because eventually those trees that you first planted, they are going to come to a time where they're no longer viable in the property. So a plan of what's going to come next and how can I expand upon this, it's really important just for keeping a healthy landscape in general. And palms are no different.
I love that idea. We hear so often about planting variety of species, the diversity that you should plant, but we don't often think or hear as much about planting succession. We talk about it in our vegetable gardens all the time, but think about that in your yard for succession of years, one every 5 years, just plant a new tree.
Well, and how sad is it for somebody who has this big, beautiful, mature landscape that they have to cut it all down and start from scratch? And so there's never a guarantee when you plant a new plant that it's going to do well in that spot either. So if you have existing things that are beautiful and great, and you're getting to try out some other things and see what does and doesn't work, I mean, it really does work well. And you're right, it is underutilized. We'd love to see that done more.
Great tip. So Jennifer says that she has some palms growing at an angle. Jennifer, maybe you could give us a little bit more of like a specific angle, because I'm thinking that would depend on your answer, but they look great. You mentioned earlier a little bit that an angle might not be a good thing, but is it a little bit of a tilt okay?
I mean, so phytrophics exist in palms too. They're going to grow towards that open sunlight. So if your palms are growing at a weird angle, growing for sunlight, that's okay. When I talk about a weird angle, I talk more of like that mid trunk damage kind of thing. If you see kind of a kink or a kick out there, just a weird twist, just an indication of, hey, as far as growing in an angle, it depends at what angle they're growing, what kind of soil are they in, are they on a hillside and growing out at a 45 in the opposite direction? That may not be a good thing. Jennifer, I'd tell you, get an arborist out there, just have them take a look. I would say my gut says they're probably going to be great and fine, but better safe than sorry.
And Davey does consultations, have the arborist come out, because maybe the tree, one of the things, you guys always say is maybe the tree you're calling me out for is not the problem. There might be another problem that the arborist spots that we as laymen or lay women, lay people we can't see with our naked eye. So I always say, just call your arborist, have them come out, especially when you move to a new property. It's so important just even to find out what kind of trees you have.
Well, and in all this and in all the palms, we haven't even touched on what kind of, bacterial and fungal pathogens affect the palm trees and what kind of bugs can affect the palm trees. And so it really is, there's a lot that goes into it. And having that.
So tell us, I mean, are the bacteria and the fungus and the diseases typically trunk diseases? Are they frond diseases? Could they be both?
It depends on, they can, it depends on what it is and what the palms are. So we have some out here that we deal with. Pink rot's one, fusarium's another one, fusarium wilt. Again, your arborist is going to know really well with the palms in the area, what's prevalent, what's going around. They're not just taking care of your palm trees, they're taking care of the area's palm trees.
Yes.
So they've got the insight on what to look for. But at the end of the day, the best way is to get it analyzed, get it tested, and get a definitive on what are you working with. Because if you don't know what it is you're treating, you can't create a treatment plan.
So it's good to know that there are some pests and diseases that affect palms. It's not just weather or lack of soil nutrients. So making sure that your trees stay healthy so your arborist can identify those pests. Do you guys have cameras and stuff that go up, like drones, to go up to the top of the tree? Or can you identify things from the ground pretty well?
We typically can identify a lot of things from the ground. That said, there are some times where we'll see something of interest in the upper canopy. And that's where it's great that, for us, our climbers are also trained arborists. So they know what they're looking at up there in the canopy. So it's not just the arborist on the ground who's looking at the plant and then telling the worker what to go do. It's a trained arborist up in the canopy actually doing a visual inspection of the area they're working on. So it's a lot of communication. There's been times where I've seen a defect in the upper crown. But, with some of these palm trees, you hate to just say, hey, we've got to cut it down. So let's get up there. Let's take a look. And sometimes they have to go and sometimes they're okay. But we like having that ability to have qualified people with the ability to do that for us.
Me too. I love that. I don't have to go up there. So a tree like this, excuse me, if we see something like this does not mean our tree has to come down.
No, not at all. I mean, to me, at a glance, it looks like that tree is flowering. It's got some dead growth on there. So, I mean, that's an annual cleanup. Take off the flowering growth, take off the dead, get the soil tested, make sure it's got all the nutrients it needs, and that tree is going to do well for a long time to come.
You heard it from an arborist. That does not mean your tree has to come down. Get your trees checked. Make sure that they're healthy for many, many years. Tracy's saying that she's got a palm about 10 years old. Oh, maybe she's referring to Lindsay saying she's in Virginia and the only palm she can grow is in a container indoors. So
yeah, you can baby them if you give them enough love. You can have them anywhere. Again, it's just that making sure they stay warm. If they get cold, they're toast.
yeah. So I have learned so much about palms today, including the fact that you climb them to care for them. Obviously, I thought about that, but visualizing somebody climbing, it must be amazing to watch.
It's also very dangerous. So palm trees are one of the number one killers of tree workers here in Southern California. So there are some national regulations with how palm trees should be ascended, and again, why it's so important to use a professional company that has that licensing and insurance, because nobody wants to see anyone get hurt for a palm tree.
No, Davey is licensed, insured, and all of the accreditations that you need to have that arborist come to your house. So we'll post the link again where you can find your local arborist. Whether you live in an area with palms or not, tree care by a professional is extremely important. Have Davey out to walk your property and talk to you about the care of your trees. Ian, this has been so informative, and it makes me want to go on vacation now to where I can go sit under some palm trees.
Well, San Diego's notorious. It's the city that if you come visit, you live here forever. So come on, the secret's out. It's great. We'd love to have everybody.
Well, thank you. And we'll see you again soon, Ian. Stay cool in that gorgeous San Diego weather.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Bye-bye. And we're not done. We are back on August 4th. We're taking a brief summer hiatus. We're going on vacation, so we're not going to be here every Wednesday, but please return on August 4th at 2:15 Eastern. You can RSVP. I think, and I'm not sure we have the link up yet, but we will absolutely post the link when we have it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you want to catch some more talking trees, especially while we're on hiatus, don't forget that Davey has a podcast called Talking Trees. They have a blog, and you can always have an arborist out to your property for your specific needs. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you on August 4th at 2:15 Eastern. Bye.